Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. On this 26th day of June, we are right in the midst of summer here in Nashville, Tennessee area. I tell you, it's really hot out here. It's a little over 90 degrees, and it feels like a little over 100. I hope you all staying hydrated and cool out there. Got a great show on tonight. Listen, Draymond Green may be a bidding war, and I'm going to make the argument why he should not return to the Golden State Warriors. Also, Utah quietly makes a really good move there for a role player. I think that's going to be good for them with John Collins. Deion Sanders back in the news this week. I'm going to talk about him, go over a little bit of the Colorado Buffaloes, and some of the points he made with the interview with Joe Klatt, Fox's Joe Klatt, here in a little while. Also talk a little Big Three basketball. The 303 tournament started by Ice Cube. He had a pretty interesting quote he put out on social media. And you know what? I may try to get him on Sports Scope. I know it's a bit of a long shot, but hey, you miss every shot you don't take. It's what my dad used to tell me. Either way, we're going to hit the ground running. I'll be back here in 49 seconds. We'll take our first and only break here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. Righty then. Okay. Another quick announcement. Tomorrow I'll have returning guests, Tony Cox and his son Jacoby. Now, Jacoby is a rising star here in the Middle Tennessee area, quarterback, 6'5". He was on the program, folks, 4 years ago. I want to say he is still playing football in Clarksville, Tennessee area with his dad. I used to work with his dad, and it's going to be a good interview. I'm really interested to see how far they came. And his dad is telling me that, he's playing really well, living up to some of that expectations and just the way he's been playing college football, junior high. Now he's into high school. And I'm going to ask him about his future and what colleges may be looking at Jacoby Cox here. So Tony and Jacoby Cox will return. I'm curious how much. I'm going to go back tomorrow and listen to the old interview. But either way, they'll be on 30 minutes past the hour. I've reached out to Jeffrey Descovich if he wanted to come on Wednesday's program. He hasn't got back. Jeffrey's a lawyer. He's very busy because I know he's really into the NBA. A lot of good stuff going on from there. But speaking of the NBA, that's a good transition. Now, this is Brian Windhorst from This Morning on Get Up. I've got him. And I've got, let me make sure I got this other guy's name right before I play his soundbite. Chris Hayes from TNT. I've got a quote on him. These are two NBA reporters with connections. Listen to this on Draymond Green. I'm going to make a point why Green shouldn't go back. Not for Golden State's perspective, but for his perspective. For what's best for Draymond Green. So listen up. Here's Brian Windhorst this morning on ESPN Get Up.
But I don't think either are compelling enough.
Where do we stand with Draymond Green and his decision and his future? We know he's opted out of his deal.
Well, let's talk about words and actions. First off, Steve Kerr comes out and says he doesn't see the Warriors remaining as a contender if Draymond is not on the roster. Then, before Draymond goes on his European vacation, he met with the Warriors ahead of his decision to opt out of his contract. From what I'm told, those were constructive discussions. So he opts out, but he opts out with the intention to talk to him about a new deal. And then the actions. Last week, they trade Jordan Poole for the expiring contract of Chris Paul. This cleans up some of the pressure on their books going forward, gets them into position to offer Draymond Green a long-term contract. There are some teams out there with cap space that are intriguing options for him. The Detroit Pistons, which would be home. The Sacramento Kings have cleaned up their books and opened up a bunch of salary cap space after a draft night deal. Both of those teams, I think, would have interest in him, but I don't think either are compelling enough to have him leave the Warriors.
Well, we'll see about that. All right, now, that was early this morning. Then later on, a couple hours ago, this is Chris Hayes from TNT. Let me make sure I got his name right here. I think it's Haynes, Chris Haynes from TNT, talking about an update on Draymond Green.
Draymond Green that's why teams like to keep their players away. They will hope that their players do not take those recruiting meetings. But I was told that Draymond Green is open to taking free agent meetings with other teams, which, again, could throw a wrinkle in the situation. I expect him. I still, if you ask me right now, what's this, June 26th, what do I think happens? I think Draymond ends up back with Golden State.
Yeah. All right. Now, everybody's leaning that. And I said this the other day. I wouldn't bring Draymond Green back to play with with Golden State, for one thing, because of his age. And now you have Chris Paul, who's 37 years old. But listen, both of those reporters said one thing. They said the Sacramento Kings. Here's something intriguing about the Kings. Mike Brown, he was an assistant for 6 years with Draymond Green, with the Golden State Warriors from 16 to 22. And that's Mike Brown, very strong-minded, defensive-minded head coach. Used to coach LeBron with the Cavs. Those teams play great defense, really organized, got as much as they could out of that talent. Those were the pre-Miami Heat days with LeBron, where he was doing everything. They got the 1 seed. They just could not beat a really good Spurs team where they were swept. That was Mike Brown. So, but if you look at Green being the main piece on a Golden State Warrior team, folks, that has 34. Green himself will be 34 in the season. All right. Steph Curry will be 36 next season. You know, I've already mentioned 38-year-old Chris Paul and 36-year-old Steph Curry, 34-year-old Klay Thompson. Okay. So here's a quote from speaking of age, that is really bad. Okay. So listen to Adam Sandler describe this team as if they were a woman.
But she's an old lady. I mean, look at her. She's old. You can't just take her stuff. She's too old.
Actually, that is from Happy Gilmore, him trying to save his grandmother's place there from getting repossessed. Now, so you say, well, what's the difference here? Okay, now let's go back and look at the alternative. That's an old team. That's an old, and you know he is a brutally honest guy, Draymond Green. I listened to his podcast. It's a little choppy, but he's a young guy. He's very young. He's only 30 young to me. I'm 41, but he's only done this for 2 years. But he's honest about, hey, we're bad on the road in the regular season. I don't think Jordan Poole, taking him away was the biggest. Jordan Poole being taken away, a 25-year-old Jordan Poole being taken away, that's not going to make this team get any younger. You know, that is not he's not going to continue to have to be able to play this level of minutes here. You know, look at, so say if he comes back and signs a $100 million deal. I read that somewhere last week. That's crazy talk for a guy 34. But are they still better than the Lakers? No. You know, they're behind Denver. They're behind a healthy Grizzly team. All right. They're behind a healthy Phoenix Suns team. And they may be behind this Sacramento Kings team. Now, you say, well, what's the alternative? So my thing is, he doesn't have to be a part of the piece, which is what he is now with Golden State. He could be a piece of a winner and not have to be depending on to give just a boatload of minutes and wearing himself down in his 34-year-old body. Now, when you're playing with Domantas Sabonis, who gave him everything he could handle, shot over him at all, you could come in for this guy and play small ball. You can come in for a Keegan Murray, who is really young guy. Murray played outstanding basketball last year. Even if they offer close or maybe just a hair more, the Sacramento King team, you're rotating with young De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Devin Mitchell, Keaton Morton, all these young players who Sabonis, who's 28 years old, and he essentially could be, he could one up Steph and Clay. I think if you look at that team with Draymond, Sabonis, and that group, they need an older guy that's been there. Yeah, you said, what about Harrison? But no, Green has got a very strong presence there. When Bright Brown sees him getting fatigued, he can bring him out. He bring in 28-year-old Sabonis, okay? I mean, there's a lot. Keegan Murray, he could bring in this guy. What are you going to do with Golden State? Golden State has a lot of salary cap. I read something earlier this year. Now, I know that Poole helped that out a lot. Poole helped their financial ability. But before Poole was moved, they were sitting at a $500 million cap hit because of the new luxury tax with the new CBA that goes into effect next month. It's huge. Yeah, Corey, you're right on top of this CBA. It's really a real thing now. You can't now it's not a hard cap. The NFL is a hard cap. You lose players and everything else. Yeah. So Pickles already sees this. This is my thing, guys. You guys are old timers. You're students of the game. I'm students of the game. I'm seeing this envision of Draymond Green being a modern day Robert Horry. People don't realize that Robert Horry won 2 championships with the Houston Texans. He won with the Lakers, and he won with the Spurs. He's that kind of player. But he has to be realistic with himself and say, okay, I can help this team get over the top. I could potentially help this team, especially with the De'Aaron Fox, compete with Denver. You know, I don't have to be part of the piece. I could be a piece. You know, he probably wouldn't even have to move. You know, the Kings, Sacramento is a bus ride away from Golden. He probably wouldn't even have to move. Probably just rent a condo up there, move the wife and kids up there, 4 or 5 years. And from time to time, keep an eye on his regular residence down in the Golden State area, wherever he lives at. And I think that it would be, he would be much more of an impactful player. But asking him to play 38, 35, 38, 40 minutes a night in an 82-game season with that kind of age, I mean, yeah, Wiggins, they're going to ask more of Wiggins. I get it. And they're going to ask more of Gary Payton and Looney, but that's simply not enough. Those are role players. They're not your main players. They're not De'Aaron Fox. They're not Sabonis. They're not Malik Monk. They're not those type of players. And I think Mike Brown could manage it right for him. So that's what I would do. I mean, if I'm Draymond Green, I could one-up Steph and Clay. Because, listen, they're not going to win anymore in Golden State. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Not unless they get a huge break. Again, Denver would have to go down. Phoenix would have to go down. The Clippers would have to go down. The Lakers would have to go down. I mean, look at all the Suns themselves would have to go down. Memphis would have to go. It's too much of an uphill battle. You know, Memphis just got better last week when they've got Marcus Smart. You know, they're going to get John Morant back in 25 games. They're going the other direction. Golden State's best days are behind them. And that's probably why Bob Myers went on and left, okay? But anyways, we'll see how that plays out. They'll probably overpay him and run it back. And this reminds me a lot of the Lakers overpaying Kobe Bryant at the end and him running it back with that huge salary. What happened? Well, he tore his Achilles and it came back one more year. And then they were set back for a few years. They got LeBron, and we all know what happened after that. You know, leading up to LeBron, they got Brandon Ingram, turned out to be a decent player, contributed, Lonzo Ball, guys like that, Kyle Kuzma. And, of course, LeBron came in town. You throw in who's the other guy? Russell something. Well, they shipped him all over the place. Then brought him back and then gave him away again. You know, Pickles thinks maybe Memphis takes a step back. I don't know about that. You know, remember Brandon Clark missed a lot of the season. Steven Adams missed a part of the season. You know, so you start losing pieces like that. Memphis has got two former defensive players of the D'Angelo Russell. That's it. Thank you, Pickles. D'Angelo Russell, you know, with LA. So anyways, it is what it is. Now, I'll tell you this. A lot of people not talking about this play here, but I like what Utah did. You know, Danny Ainge, Mr. Competitive. He was a competitive player, undersized, competitive general manager, personnel guy. There was a point at one time nobody wanted to do a deal with Boston because they lost every deal. Remember, they did a deal where Orlando got Markelle Fultz, and they ended up getting Jason Tatum. Let's see how that one's turned out, right? And now, you know, I like to compliment. This is the little piece of the puzzle type of play here. You know, this is one of those under the radar type of moves that you look back and you think, man, that's pretty good. You're going to look back a few years from now. You know, so Utah, they do a trade for John Collins here. You know, John Collins with John Collins with the Atlanta Hawks here. And I was reading this from Adrian Wojciechowski. The Hawks are finalizing a trade. John Collins to the Jazz for Rudy Gay, who is 100 years old in basketball years. John Collins, 25 years old, by the way. Atlanta was largely unloading Collins' 3-year, $78 million for roster build and flexibility. You know, I understand that's what it was, but this guy is a solid 15-8 guy. That's his career stats. Here, I've seen him get a double-doubles. I've seen him do 22 and 12, 22 and 14. You know, Atlanta they couldn't get all that to gel together. They have good individual pieces there between him and that center they had and Trae Young. They've had some good individual pieces, not great individual. Yeah, that's a great pickup, you know. But they got him for nothing. So they've got Collins on contract here. Utah and did what he did in Boston. boatload of draft picks, future draft picks for because remember they traded away Donovan Mitchell, they traded away Rudy Gobert, and Pickle says he's a 2010 guy. He'll be a quiet 2010 every night. He's perfect fit. 25. I thought he was a lot older than that. He's 25. He's another one of those guys came in at like 19, and they just get him for nothing. Atlanta said, we just want you to take the salary out. It was like the Porzingis trade, the first trade, the one that fell through for Boston, before they had to give up Marcus Smart. So this is basically a steal. They basically just gave Collins to Utah. And that's what he does, man. That's what he does. So they're one of those teams you want to watch and see how this thing's going to play out. Because they're going to go up. You just don't know how far, and you don't know when. They kind of remind me, like I said, same thing. Sam Presti. I'd give the two. If of the two, I'd give Presti in Oklahoma City an edge because they got SGA. That guy's a player. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander there. But Utah, keep an eye on Utah. They were supposed to be tanking this year, and they were still winning half of the season in the regular season there. So, I just thought that was a very impressive move by Danny Ainge. Kind of get thrown under the radar there up in Utah. Okay, staying in the mountains. Deion Sanders back in the news over the weekend. Deion Sanders, he's been in the news for a lot of stuff. I mean, just totally turning over the Colorado Buffalo team. There was reports earlier this week that Deion had blood clots. He was supposed to have some surgery to have them removed from his leg. Then reports came out later on this week that there's a possibility they could have his foot amputated. I think he had like a toe amputated or something, some blood clot issues. He's a very driven guy. I've talked to Jim Jeffcoat, former Dallas Cowboys player there, and I think I talked to him. Yeah, I've talked to him here on this program, and Jim said, listen, this guy, when I played with him, he said he would be there early in Dallas. He would be there when the coaches were there, before the players there, studying film. He's very serious about his craft. Yes, he was flashy. Yes, he had the nicknames and all that, So he did. So he's a very serious guy in his coaching. Now, these health issues, this has been going on for 2 years. This may withhold him. Supposedly, he got released yesterday. The blood clot surgery was successful. But also, I wanted to bring up him because he did an interesting interview here. The Spurs control the Hawks draft pick with part of Murray deal. Yeah, that was last year, Corey. I was reading that. Yeah, that was last year. That was part of Spurs' tank job. They wanted to get rid of Murray because they wanted to lose more games, and obviously it worked out. They got Wembanyama, and that's another thing I'll talk about here in a little bit. Almost forgot the Wembanyama story. So, anyways, this Deion Sanders thing's pretty interesting, and he's talking with Joe Klatt with Fox Sports. Joe Klatt is the guy who calls the games. Him and I think it was Gus Johnson, one of the most fascinating guys. One of my favorite within the last 10, 12 years, college and professional commentators Gus Johnson gets you really excited. Wow. Oh, man, and you think everything is like some of these games, you feel like it's the last drive of the Super Bowl. I've always liked him. Used to call CBS games. He's been in college for the last 5 or 6 years there with Fox Sports and Joe Klatt. Joe Klatt was interviewing Deion Sanders a couple of weeks ago before all this surgery went about. And he's talking about, this overhaul of players and this transfer portal and being able to cut players. And, this is him and Joe Klatt talking about this from earlier, if I can find the quote here.
But some of it is without reason or understanding or
Deion Sanders
of the matter. Wouldn't the president get
essentially? He's talking about when a new president comes in, when a new CEO comes in, they clean house. Now remember, Colorado's 1-11 when he took over, and he was so aggressive. These establishment people here, people do not like disruptors. Other coaches get their feathers ruffled when a really ambitious guy comes in. Tommy Tuberville, Nick Saban, prime example of what I'm going to play. Get a little context here, right? Saban came into Alabama off of not working out at Miami Dolphins like his head was on fire. He came down there like a house of fire to Alabama. We're talking 2006, right? So he comes there in 2006, starts recruiting like nobody's business. This guy, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, 10, 11 o'clock, midnight at night, working around the clock, Nick Saban. Tommy Tuberville is the Auburn head coach at that time and said, man, this guy's cheating, man. This guy's cheating. There's nobody can recruit like that. People that work hard like that. Now, Tuberville's very successful. He's a senator and everything now. But he's never met a match like Nick Saban when it comes to recruiting. That same effect, the house cleaning, other coaches have criticized Deion Sanders. I have a theory for his method, for the method to his madness. I'm going to play this soundbite. This is him a couple of weeks ago with Joe Klatt talking about CEOs clean house. Why is there a problem when I clean house here? So, here we go. Play it.
Some of it is without reason or understanding or intelligence of the matter. When the president gets the seat of being the president, what happens to the cabinet?
He enacts his agenda, right?
So what am I doing that's no different than any CEO or any person of standard of status that have claimed this position? I got to get it right. The problem is I value now so much that I ain't looking at yesterday and I'm not looking forward to tomorrow. Now. So my feeling and my thought and my understanding is
and there's two parts to that. The first 30 seconds is, okay, why are you criticizing me? And that's what any president, any new CEO is going to do. We're going to clean house. Did you catch the second half of that? Let me play that last 30 seconds again. So this is what really interested me. And here's that last 30 seconds of that bite.
CEO or any person of standard of status that have claimed this position. I got to get it right. The problem is I value now so much that I ain't looking at yesterday and I'm not looking forward to tomorrow. Now.
He ain't looking forward to tomorrow because his plan is there is no going to be no tomorrow. At Colorado, there is no tomorrow at Colorado. And later on in the interview, and Joe Klatt, a little bit of history on him. He used to play quarterback. He's about 35, 40 years old, about a year or two younger than me. Very good guy. I mean, he's good at calling. A very good color guy. Joe Klatt. They do the big, a lot of the Big 12 stuff, a lot of the Pac-10 stuff at Fox. Not as good as the SEC stuff, but he's very good. He's one of my favorites. This guy's good. He used to play quarterback at Colorado, and he's like, man, 5 or 6 wins would be good for me. And then he's like, no, I want more than that. I want to win them all. Because here's the way I'm deciphering what he's saying is I'm here to win 8, 9, 10 games from a 1-11 season. And he also mentioned about how he likes the South. He's from Florida. He currently lives in Texas. I guess he's just stayed in Fort Worth. I mean, Fort Worth grows on people. Jim Jeffcoat's from New Jersey originally. He still lives in Dallas to this day. He was drafted in the first round in '83. But Deion he's staying in Texas. Now he's got his son there. He's a junior. He's got this other guy's a junior. Travis Hunter, one of the top cornerbacks in the country. They're going to be competitive. And he's thinking he's trying to wait out one of these SEC jobs. Possibly. He mentioned Florida, likes Florida. He would just love that University of Florida job. He would be good for the University of Florida. He's going to recruit Middle Florida like nobody's business, man. He's already recruiting Florida, living in Colorado. Talks about the beauty, but he let the cat out of the bag. He's going to be a one and done, just like a college back, and more power to him. You look at all the ink now that Colorado's got. Colorado hasn't had a winning year in 20 years. They haven't had a winning season in 20 years. And I thought, man, that's crazy. Joe Klatt, he mentioned that stat here. But if you look at the kind of attention they're getting sellouts, the crowd for their spring game, as long as these blood clots don't catch up with him, and maybe he's pushing himself too hard and it's making these blood clots worse. What's bad for a blood clot is flying too much. Heavy D, the great rapper Heavy D, he died from blood clot. He was overweight and stuff, but he was doing too much flying, overseas flying, and he died from blood clots, what I read. But I thought that was an interesting interview here. He may be pushing himself too hard. Maybe that's hurt him. But I'll say this. He's going to be a one-and-done guy. And I guess you could say I would prefer, say, 3 to 5 years, maybe one class. But no, he's wanting to get back to the South. Billy Napier with Florida. Yes, over the weekend, they've had a really good list of commitments for the 2024 season. They're in the top 5 in recruiting. But the problem is he's in year 2, and the incoming class last year was bad in his first class. So the 24 would be in his year 3 per se. But remember, Florida lost last year to Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Tennessee, blown out by Oregon State. They fell to lows that I never thought that the university Florida would fall to. And even if he's got a really good class coming in next year, if they're another 5 or 6 win team, which means they're losing 6 to 7 games, I think he'll be Austin. I think they'll move off of Billy Napier, and he would love to get that job. He was talked about as a potential candidate for the Auburn job. Ultimately went to a more experienced head coach there. I can't remember the guy's name, but he used to coach for Ole Miss, and he beat Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze beat Alabama twice with Ole Miss. So, yeah, they're expecting to beat Alabama at Auburn with Hugh Freeze. So they went with Hugh Freeze. Lane Kiffin was talked about that job. Maybe Ole Miss gets, even though they've extended Lane Kiffin. Remember, we talked about extensions before. They mean nothing. They mean nothing. They may be, Pickle says, only way you can go is up. Only way you can go is up. And that's where they will. And that's what Joe Klatt said. Man, you win 5 or 6 games. He said, no, man. Every one of the games is what I'm trying to do, you know? So, but I'm looking here, and he's put so much hype. And I read over some NCAA rules. You can get the first-year head coaches, you can clean slate. These are some, I read this looking back here. Outside the first-year coaches don't have the ability to kick players off the team without a cause, and this would break the contract between student-athlete and university. However, coaches are pushing players out of the programs by effectively telling some players they won't see the field unless they litigated the scout team. So his first year, he can clean house. That's what he did. He cleaned house. But he can't do that next year. He's like, I ain't going to be no next year. Not with me here. That's what he's banking on, you know. And, you know, he might go to Florida. Now, Florida State was 10-3 last year. They knocked out LSU. Mark Norvell's got his footing. He seems to be on track. The former Memphis coach, Mike Norvell, is at FSU. That would be the dream job. He went to FSU. He was a star at FSU. He really put FSU, him, and, of course, you know, Bobby Bowden, the coach that brought him in, really made FSU a legit power. I think they'll keep Norvell, but, you know, 10-3 last year. Now, if he's 7-5 in the down ACC, loses again to Clemson, loses to Florida, which he didn't lose last year, he won, then I could see possibly the Florida State people going out and hiring. Either way, Deion is like, I ain't worried about tomorrow. My son's going to be gone, which his son does look good. Now, this was at Jackson State, but he's like, listen, he's going to get rid of the ball. He's putting a lot of pressure on Sonny. You know, he's definitely putting a lot of pressure on his son. I was looking at their schedule. They played TCU at TCU, who was in the Final Four, the national championship game this past year against Sonny Dykes. That's the big game right there. That's the big noon kickoff game for Fox right there. So I think they'll probably lose that game, but I think they'll keep it a game early. This Colorado team, with all these new players, they will make this a game early, you know. But they got home games against Nebraska, Colorado State. They got USC at home, okay? They play at Oregon, but USC at home, they could potentially beat USC. Even with all that hype by Caleb Williams, they could beat USC in Boulder. You know, they got Stanford at home, who's changed coaches. I think they'll win that. They're playing at UCLA off of bye week. They can win that game. They've got Oregon at home, Arizona at home. You know, if they win 6 games, he's going to take one of these big jobs, you know. But it's going to be interesting. They're going to get a major upset. It's just how many. It's how many upsets are they going to get. Can they go to Washington State and knock them off? Yeah, I think so. Now, the problem is they got to play at Utah. They got to play at TCU, at Oregon, at Arizona State. That at Oregon game is going to be, you know, going to be tough on them because Oregon's a loaded team. They got a lot of talent there at Oregon. But I tell you what, that doesn't mean they can win 7-8 games, you know. That doesn't mean that they can can't win 7 or 8 games, and he's going to jump on the next big job, depending on his health. But basically, he just let the cat out of the bag in that interview. I thought that was interesting. Deion made a 1-11 team. Like Pickle says, only way you can go is up when you're that far down. Okay, switching sports here, folks. Now, I've talked about this before in this program, Ice Cube's Big 3 League. Now, watched a game yesterday in the Big 3. Big 3 is a 3-on-3 basketball tournament with former NBA players. Now, it was Oh God. Who was in this game? Joe Johnson and Corey Brewer played yesterday. Corey Brewer's team won. Corey Brewer, I followed him since former Dallas Maverick. I followed him since his college days at Florida. And Joe Johnson used to play with the Hawks and everybody else. I followed him since 41-year-old player. I mean, him was the exact same age. He's about a month older than me. Since he played at Arkansas. Scored 40 points in a college game one time. But these two guys play with the big three. It's a half-court 3-on-3 tournament. They had a hard time getting on a consistent channel. First year there, 2017. This is the sixth season. They've had their problems here. But Ice Cube has come to realize that, number one, the NBA, they say a lot of nice things publicly. This is mainly a league for just retired NBA players, still want to play, getting a decent salary. It's not an NBA salary, but you're staying in the States. They used to play at one location. Now they're starting to move around a little bit more. They had some issues like everybody did during the 2020 COVID season. There's reports that maybe Colin Kaepernick may invest into it. Those reports were struck down. And he also said this about the NBA. Now, the NBA, remember, they got the Summer League. The Summer League is rookies, marginal G League players. It's virtually unwatchable. Now, this year to be watchable because Wembanyama has had a lot of hype there. Wembanyama this weekend was seen with, he was having dinner with Tim Duncan, David Robertson, Manu Ginobili. There was a picture circling the internet, and he's taller than all of them. I mean, he's a good few inches taller than 7 foot tall David Robertson. And you could tell he really stands out. You know, I think he's going to be fine. So it'll be watchable then. But for the most part, the Summer League is just not that watchable. I've got NBA TV. I don't know any of these guys. A lot of you don't know any of these guys. But you know, the big three now, they are on CBS. Yesterday, I think it comes on around noon Sunday that I know of, the big three league. But he said this in an interview last month. You know, he's like, yeah, the NBA, they're saying nice things publicly, but he says the NBA hasn't been the nicest to the big three, of course. This was in I got this from Clutch Points, the interview he did last month. The NBA hasn't been the nicest to the big three. Of course, publicly they say all the right words, but we know privately there's things behind the scenes with sponsors, broadcaster, blah, blah, blah. It didn't tarnish my freedom, the 52-year-old founder said. So, and then he says like a public announcement issue, and I'm going to try to get him on. I know it's a long shot, folks. I know I'm practically a nobody in the grand scheme of things, but I'm going to try to get Ice Cube on the program. I could not get Jimmy Johnson on the program, even though I worked with, you know, one of his former players for 3 years on podcasting. I've gotten over it. Forget about it. It's a pretty good book, but bleep him for not coming on. But I'm going to try to get Ice Cube on. Ice Cube is now realizing, but what I'm about to tell you is there's a war on individualism in this country. If you don't groupthink, the gate, he uses the term gatekeeping. I'll play a soundbite here in a minute, long soundbite. The gatekeepers, you have to say certain things at certain times. You have to have certain issues. This guy don't want to, listen, this guy worked with the NWA, you know, one of the original founders of NWA. He came up with F the Police song. Okay. He's one of these people, he don't want to be told to do certain things, to say certain things. If he doesn't believe it, he's not going to be told to do anything. He's not one to be micromanaged. Listen to what he said on Twitter. He said this on all his social media last week. And I really like the guy. Like I said, I like somebody who thinks for themselves. He's really speaking truth here. Ice Cube, everybody.
You know what it is. It's your homeboy Ice Cube. And some of you may not have realized that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either. And what I realized with the club is what makes them so mad is when you don't want to be a part of their fucking club.
Yes, that's a language.
Them off. What club am I talking about? I'm talking about the club of gatekeepers that we all got to deal with. You know who they are, and they definitely know who they are. A lot of people would be like, what? Who? Come on, man, stop playing. So ever since I put out the contract with Black America, you know they've been fucking with me. Here and there, this and that. But it's cool, you know. I expect that. You know, I've been working with, you know, on the Big Three for a long time. And you know how
6 years
with me with that. I done made it, you know, plain, simple, and clear what they've been doing. You know, the NBA been fucking with us. Now, a lot of people might say, like, well, but Cube, you want to work with the NBA. Really, I don't give a fuck about working with the NBA. What I want them to do, when I say work with us, is to stop working against us. Stop doing that bullshit behind the scenes that we know you're doing. Mainstream media, you know, they ain't fucking with us. And that's cool. We can do it ourselves, you know what I'm saying? We still on the rise without these motherfuckers. So we don't need them, you don't need them. You know? So what am I going to do to deal with these motherfucking gatekeepers? Well, what I'm going to do is go on a Fuck the Gatekeepers podcast tour. And I'm going to go talk to everybody, you know, and get a chance to get my message out to the people.
And I'm going to try to get him on SportsScope for that. And like I said, I apologize about the language, but that's somebody who thinks for himself. And there's a war on independent thought in this country. And, you know, going back to Jerry, what's his name? Jerry Heller, Corey? He picked up that they were getting played as a teenager with the NWA. Jerry Heller, the manager with Eazy-E. We saw the movie, the NWA movie. We saw the documentaries. They read up on a lot of that. You know, we're getting peanuts. You're overcharging us for booking and advertising and all. And I'm kind of in that same boat here. You know, now if he was pushing certain social issues, like I said, he said, you know, hey, he made the song F the Pope. But if he meant that, he would push those things on the court. But he's not going to do it because society and certain powers to be, like your ESPNs of the world, wants him. He's not going to push gay agenda and all that. He's not going to do that. He's going to make it about basketball. And they have. For example, when the Big Three started back in 2017, they had Michael Rappaport. Michael Rappaport's actor. He played Remy, the racist guy in the movie Higher Learning. Good movie. Came out in 95. Saw it at the theater. And this guy was like a sideline reporter on the Big Three. And he was asking players questions and micing people up. And it looked a little cheesy to me. It looked very MTV-ish. Little gimmicky, MTV celebrity basketball tournaments. You all remember that from back in the day. Some of you older audiences, and those were hard to watch. It was just, you know, you see the celebrities, but they're not taking the game. Big Three is very serious. You know, they had the 4-point shot and everything, but these guys are playing hard. They did away with Rappaport. Whether he quit or whatever, it was a good move getting him out of there. He's too much of a joke. And they got some real commentators in there, former players. And they did get, now they mainstream media, I will say this, he does have this thing on CBS. But the NBA's out for him. You don't hear anybody on ESPN pumping that up, you know, because he doesn't politically and socially push that nonsense. He might believe some of this stuff, but he's not using his game for that. And they don't like that. They want to control him. And that's probably why, the reason why I'm talking to you and not working for one of these big outlets, because I'm not going to push that nonsense on viewers, and I don't really believe it. And I don't think that people want to be lectured to anyways. Whether you believe the political movement or saying or not, there's none of that crap on the court. They're not changing their jerseys. Rainbow jerseys. No, it is what it is, you know? So I'm going to try to get the guy on. He's just, buy a network and start your own. And that's what he did. You know, he's politically incorrect. He started it then, and he's an independent thinker. He didn't beg people to put him in their comedy movies. He talked to John Singleton, and John Singleton's the guy who created the movie Boys in the Hood. And he said, "How do you do that, man? I really like the way you went about screenwriting everything." John Singleton, USC graduate, and a lot like myself, Ice Cube is a very straight up. Just tell me, hey man, and he says, "Here, let me show you how to do it. Do your thing, man. Do your thing." Took him about 3 months, and he wrote Friday, a cult classic to this day, especially if you lived in hoods growing up. So then he writes Friday. A couple years out of NWA, he goes independent. He goes away from Jerry Heller. And he does the same thing with the Big Three. Listen, I've said the Big Three is a success to me because I've been saying on this program for a very long time, that there's not enough sports in the heart of the summer right now, now we've got free agency, but come on, man. Summer League, come on. You got NBA free agency for a little while. That's going to start Friday. Then things really, really slow. Baseball, there's no sense of urgency in July. What else? Football, real football doesn't start till Labor Day weekend. You get some camps that start in late July, August in the NFL. Some of these awful preseason games, I may watch one or two, but they're unwatchable after, you're watching a lot of backups, and some guys not even going to play. They're going to get cut. More and more players are not even, no more coaches are not playing their players. That's August. That's the whole month of August. Okay. There's no NBA. The baseball, July, you've got the All-Star break coming up here in a few weeks, and you don't have pennant races or nothing. None of that comes down. August is, it's just a big tumble. It's a big desert. So the Big Three just started last week. It was good. Like I said, it was one shot game between Corey Brewer's team and Joe Johnson's team. Two players that I followed since college, and now they're both around my age. Brewer's 37, Johnson's 41. And, so his main thing was it's boring. The summer's boring. Not everybody's got money to go on vacation for 2.5, 3 months. Most of us don't actually. And I really love the Big Three. Again, I'm going to jumping through a lot of hoops. And I was telling a friend of mine this weekend, I'm going to ask him, hey man, if you can you please not curse so much? But if it comes out, it comes out. I'm not mad at you. The guy's always inspired me because like I said, lived in the hood myself, born outside the hood, lived in the hood, the actual projects, first generation college student myself. Like him, I think he went like one semester, some college or something like that. And then, the rap thing started taking off. Right place, right time. Gets this thing going. He said this back in 92. And guy from MTV asked him, they said, what about when you ask somebody about, he said, what about when you ask somebody to be on a movie or something and it doesn't work out? He said, it's their loss. And I thought, man, the way he said that is the way I communicate. That is the language that I understand. Don't beg nobody for jack squat. Just be the best. Be the best. Like I said, and I totally believe him what he's saying, because the NBA does not want anybody to compete with their crappy summer league, which is garbage. And Adam Silver knows it, And quite frankly, the age, the minimum age used to be 30 for Big Three. Now it's been lowered to 22. So a lot of these guys are marginal players. I would much rather see these guys play over here in the safety of the intercontinental United States than playing in China, Russia. Dwight Howard plays in Taiwan that could get invaded by China at any time. Why do that? So, and he says, listen, and his approach was like my approach for SportsScope. He said, we're playing the long game, man. He said in 30 years from now, this was back in 2017, he said in 30 years from now, this could be, a premier semi-pro league, where guys are making maybe $500,000 to $1 million a year playing semi-pro post. It's good on the older players just playing half court. It's a good quality product. They got ladder. It's just a good product. Like I said, watch the Big Three. I'm a big fan, especially if I can get Cube to come on the program here on SportsScope. That would be amazing. I'm going to go through his people. I know it's going to be a minute because I know he's in demand, but I'm going to push to bring him on. I tried to get Nancy Lieberman, one of the coaches, on through Facebook. I think it was a fake account per se. Seems like a pretty nice lady from Brooklyn area. Won a championship with the Big Three. Love to get her on. But I'd really like to get Ice Cube on, because he's one of these guys. He's just not going to do the nonsense. He's going to do it his way, like the Frank Sinatra song says. And I can't do nothing but tip my hat to that. And I hope and pray for one thing, I ain't paying me jack squat to say nothing about nothing. It's a good product, man. I'll put it this way. I like it better than arena football. I like the Big Three. For semi-pro, it's one of my favorite semi-pro leagues ever. Not that I ever really liked semi-pro. Some of the XFL was okay at the beginning. This USFL is pretty good, but it's really good. And these are players that you've known for 10 or 15 years. When it first started, the very first year, they had guys that I hadn't seen play in a long time. They had guys like Stoudemire, Mighty Mouse, nicknamed Mighty Mouse, Stoudemire, Damian Stoudemire, used to play for the Portland Trailblazers in 2000. He was on there playing. You'll have guys that Dr. J, I don't know if he's still a coach, but he was a coach. Charles Oakley was a coach. Steven Jackson helping out there. So these are a lot of familiar faces, a lot of guys you kind of lost track of as a fan of the league, but, start to say, hey, man, I remember these guys, I remember so-and-so from this era. And Pickle says, listen, Taiwan could implode any day. And you'd hate to see somebody like, Dwight Howard get stuck over there. I'd rather have him here playing in the Big Three in the summertime, So Mobley for the Rockets, Coutinho Mobley was on there. Yeah, he sure was, Corey. Yeah, Big Three's good stuff. Like I said, they do have some Saturday games on. It's not, my issue is it's not consistently on CBS. I wish it was more appointment TV, and I'm sure he's working his butt off to get it where it's consistently on a network like a CBS. There ain't nothing but golf on, some boring golf tournament, and it's not even a major. some golf tournament I never heard of came on after Sunday's game. Came on last week. So if you guys like the show, share the show. Make sure to check out tomorrow. We may have a big star coming on, a future star here. Jacoby Cox and his dad Tony. He came on back 4 years ago. It tells you how long sport. I can't believe I had to double check. So they're going to be on 30 minutes past the hour. They play, like I said, Jacoby plays out at Clarksville. He's quarterback, 6'5". I mean, he's got all the intangibles, man. He got all the intangibles. I don't know about the intangibles. Probably got the intangibles because dad is a no-nonsense kind of guy. So Tony and Jacoby Cox will be put on. Pickle says put it on AMC. I'll tell you what, I'd watch it. I'd watch Big 3 at 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I'll wake up and use the restroom at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I can't go back to sleep, man. I watch Big 3. It's got good pace to it. Plays music between shots, but it's not too loud where you can't hear the commentary. It's really well done. I don't know who he surrounded himself with, but he did a good job putting this product out there. So check out the Big 3. Again, I'm going to court for Ice Cube on this program. You got to think big. If you can't think it, you can't make it happen. I'm going to try to get him on the cope. So anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place here on Sports Hub. Good crowd tonight. Appreciate it. Chad, Pickles, Corey. Man, you guys are part of the band here.